And he was spot on right there. It's so funny. That's kind of like the antithesis of the Parker style, yet he predicted that back in 2004. Robert Parker is a lawyer that started writing about wines in the mid-70s, but he became really famous with his proclamation that the 1982 Bordeaux vintage was one of the greatest ever. Turns out he was right. After that, his publication, The Wine Advocate, became the source when it came to fine wine criticism. Parker stepped down from being an editor-in-chief in 2012, and then in 2019, he fully sold The Wine Advocate over to the Michelin Guide, which at the time was owned by 3 Singapore investors. Like him or loathe him, Parker wielded an incredible amount of power in the wine world. I started working wine retail last year because I wanted to get my finger on the pulse of that side of the business. And one of my coworkers has actually been in wine retail for 40 years now. And he was rummaging through the basement and found this old edition of Food and Wine magazine. And on the bottom it said, Robert Parker predicts 12 trends from October 2004. I was a senior at Michigan State at the time. I was just getting interested into wine right at this time. That was the exact year I think Sideways came out, and when I saw the film Sideways, I decided I really wanted to start learning about and enjoying wine.
No, if anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any Merlot.
I'm going to take a look at these 12 predictions, see which one Parker's got right. This year will mark 10 years that I've been in the wine business, so I actually have had some time to see some trends come and go, so I finally will have a little perspective on this. Parker predicts the future. Let's take a look at this. These predictions were from over 20 years ago. Number 1, distribution will be revolutionized. He said, I predict the total collapse of the convoluted 3-tier system of wine distribution in the United States. He said, I believe it will be possible by 2015. So, for those of you in Europe worldwide, the 3-tier system in the US is for imported wines. You have importers, you have distributors, and then you have retailers. There's 3 different levels. Everybody takes a cut. That's what drives up the prices in wine. A lot of those rules are held into place by old prohibition laws, and the large importers really can lobby to keep that system in place. As a consumer, I don't like it because it makes wine distribution very difficult across all 50 states. Also, it drives up prices. If there were no 3-tier system, wines would be a little bit lower in price. I was all idealist, thinking, man, we need to get rid of this. We need to abolish this system. But now, working in the trade, seeing how it's a well-oiled machine in some regard, I don't know, man. I don't think that it will ever change. Working in the media side, I got close relationships with a lot of importers. I know who's bringing in what. When I started working wine retail, I could not keep my head wrapped around distribution and who distributed what. Some importers had several distributors, but that's just one thing he didn't get right. I don't think it'll change. Number 2, the wine web will go mainstream. I like this. Internet message boards, websites tailored for wine geeks, and state-of-the-art winery sites all instantaneously disseminate information about new wines and new producers. Today, the realm of cyberspace junkies and hardcore internet users, these sites will become mainstream in 10 years. A much more democratic, open range of experts, consultants, specialists, advisors, and chatty wine nerds will assume the role of today's wine publications. I do think we have seen that. Look at even in the wine criticism space, there are so many critics now. You've got obviously, you still have the Wine Advocate. I'm a big fan of Venice. You have James Suckling, Jancis Robinson, Decanter over there in the UK. Now you have the Wine Independent by Lisa Peretti-Brown, who was the editor-in-chief for Robert Parker. Jeb Dunnick, who also worked for the Wine Advocate, a slew of others. You also have Instagram. I think that's democratized wine the most. You know, say what you want about Instagram or Instagram wine influencers. You have YouTube, this space where there's a handful of creators, I think, doing really great work. You have the wine Reddit, where it's really active, although I feel like they can get nasty there. And then a slew of blogs, although the writing sphere is kind of dying down a bit. Even though wine consumption is trending downward, ironically, now's the best time to really enjoy and learn about wine because all the information's there at your fingertips. And also, the wines today are just getting better and better and better. Great wines are being made all over the place. everywhere. I mean, I've tasted some great wines traveling everywhere from Thailand to Moldova, Croatia, and then all the typical countries that you know: Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, the US, Mexico, South America even. So Parker was right on that. Good. You know, and that was 2004. That was the days of still when we were, I think, my senior year at Michigan State, I was still using AOL Instant Messenger. Bling, bling, bling. That is the cool thing about the internet. There's a lot of bad things, but I do think what's cool is it links together. You can connect with people that have similar interests all the way across the globe. So he was right. Number 3, world bidding wars will begin for top wines. Competition for the world's greatest wines will increase exponentially. The most limited production wines will be even more expensive and more difficult to obtain. The burgeoning interest for fine wine in Asia, South America, Central and Eastern Europe, and Russia will make things even worse. There will be bidding wars at auctions for the few cases of highly praised limited production wines. No matter how high prices appear for today for wines at the most hallowed vineyards, they represent only a fraction of what these wines will fetch in a decade. He was right. Americans will scream bloody murder when looking at the future prices for the first 2003 first growth Bordeaux, average of $4,000 a case. But if my instincts are correct, 10 years from now, the great vintage of these first growths will cost over $10,000 a case at the minimum. He was spot on here. I drink with a group of collectors. I'm the youngest guy in the group. We meet every month. They're mostly in their 70s, some in their 60s, a couple guys in their 50s. But they were buying wines a couple decades ago when they were more affordable in the 80s and 90s. First growth Bordeaux's are going for about $1,000, about $900 to $1,000 a bottle. So you're looking at $10,000 a case. These rare wines have just shot up. You look at things like Romanée Conti, Rousseau's Chambertin, which go into the 5 figures for a new release, and that's if you can find them. And that's the problem for younger people that want to get into the wine space. I know myself included. Fortunately, I was living in a place in Singapore when I was starting to make some money and going to tastings and stuff where I had access to taste all these great wines. And now as I've worked my way up in the business, I do get access to tasting these wines. But man, when you're younger, it's really hard to taste some of these benchmarks. And I'm not saying these are the greatest wines in the world, but it is nice to taste like what wines are measured up against. That's difficult. I mean, to taste some of these great Burgundies, like I'm no Burgundy expert, you have to be obscenely wealthy or super, super well connected. Number 4, France will feel a squeeze. The globalization of wine will mean many things. Most of it bad news for the country historically known for producing the world's greatest wines, France. The French caste system will become even more stratified. The top 5% of the estates will churn out the most compelling wines and receive increasingly astronomical prices for them. However, like we were just talking about. However, France's obsession with tradition and maintaining the status quo will result in the bankruptcy and collapse of many producers who refuse to recognize the competitive nature of the global wine market. You see this happening in Bordeaux, where the government's paying a lot of people to rip out some of the vines. Bordeaux, as great of a wine region is, people think of the first growths, thousands of dollars a bottle, but most of Bordeaux is just inexpensive table wine. Farmers are struggling to get fair prices. I know friends in the south of France, in the Languedoc, in the Roussillon, where it is more affordable to make wine, really struggling to make ends meet, and he was right. Wine, like anything, it's no different than anything in economics. The middle class, I feel like the most interesting wines usually are in the $25 to $50 range, depending, we'll adjust here and there. That's the middle class. Really, the only people that are doing super well are making a ton of wine, which that market is shrinking, or at the top where you're producing these high-end luxury wines, the middle class is kind of disappearing. France also has competition from everybody's making great wines. Now, my wine career really kind of started in Eastern Europe, where I'm really have an affinity, especially for the Balkans, where there's unique grape varieties, indigenous grape varieties, winemaking traditions that span back hundreds of years also, and there's some great stuff coming out of the region. My goodness, even in Asia you'll find some quality wine, so he was right so far. So far he is 1, 2, 3 for 4. Let's look at 5. Corks will come out. I believe wines bottled with corks will be the minority in 2015. I do wish this was the case. Most people cannot afford, especially with real estate prices, to have a big house with a cellar, nor do they want a cellar. They want to drink wines for immediate pleasure. That's the trend in the wine industry anyway, to produce more approachable wines that you can pop open. And I still don't understand why the majority of the wines come with cork. Most of the time, people are going to go home and open them. Just Stelvins are awesome, and the wines age really, really well under them. I do like that Parker said the one exception will be great wines meant to age for 20 or 30 years that was still primarily cork finished. You see in Australia where, I can't remember, 95, 99% of the wines are bottled under Stelvin cap, and I've tasted some beautiful wines that were aged for 20 years under Stelvin. Let's go number 6. Spain will be the star. Look for Spain to continue to soar. Today is emerging as a leader in wine quality and creativity, combining the finest characteristics of tradition and modern and progressive winemaking philosophy. Spain, just coming out of a long period of cooperative winemaking that valued quantity over quality, has begun to recognize that it possesses many old vine vineyards with almost unlimited potential. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. By 2015, those areas that traditionally produced Spain's finest wine, Ribera del Duero and Rioja, will assume second place behind such up-and-coming regions as Toro, Jumilla, and Priorat. Priorat had a little bit of its shine in the light, although because there's so little wine produced there, you don't see these wines well distributed, even though I love it. Jumilla, I love those wines made of Mourvedre, Mataro. Those offer some of the greatest values for money in the wine world. Toro, bigger, richer Tempranillo, really hasn't caught on yet. I think Spain is the star for wine geeks, people that are in the know. There's a lot of small production wines made from old vines that are great. Spain was dominated and still is by cooperative winemaking. I can't remember the official statistics, but I think I saw a stat years ago, like over 60% of the wine produced in Spain is made by cooperatives. A lot of it's shipped in bulk, especially to France. That's why you'll see riots and people boycotting Spanish wine or blocking and emptying the trucks, because you can produce a lot of quantity at cheap prices. I say this over and over again. Spain to me is so exciting. The cuisine, the lifestyle, the culture, the food and wine. And they're just, I don't know if they're bad at marketing or they don't care. Sometimes I think they're just too busy living the good life. It's amazing when I was in Madrid last year that you still go to Madrid, this humongous world city, go out to tapas bars crawling, have great food, great wine. Every stop, it costs like 15 euros. To me, that's just crazy. So we'll give a half star for that. So he's like 4.5 out of 6 so far. Number 7, Malbec will make it big. He said by the year 2015, the greatness of Argentinian wines made from Malbec grape will be understood as given. Both inexpensive, delicious Malbecs and majestic, profoundly complex ones from high elevation vineyards are already being produced. And by 2015, this long-ignored grape's place in the pantheon of noble wines will be guaranteed. Malbec had a ton of shine in, I think, around the late 2000s, so he was right about that. I feel like interest has kind of waned in these wines, especially as consumers want wines that are a little bit more medium-bodied, a little bit lower in alcohol. But I have to admit, even me, Argentinian Malbec's not my first choice. I have to admit, when I taste good ones, I'm like, wow, these wines are really delicious. I'm actually heading there for the first time this March, so I get to see it firsthand, so I'm excited about that. Yes, I guess that came to roost, although it's kind of the trend, I think, for Malbec. The demand you see is dying down, like Argentina is trying to reinvent itself as a place that not only does Malbec, like right now they're trying to go into the deep south, produce excellent Pinot Noirs in Patagonia, really trying to push Cabernet Franc, which I think is a good idea too. Number 8, California's Central Coast will rule America. This one beats at my heart. Look for wines from California's Central Coast to take their place alongside the hallowed bottlings of Napa and Sonoma Valleys. No viticultural region in America has demonstrated as much progress in quality and potential for greatness as the Central Coast. With its Rhone varietals and the Santa Barbara region, where the Burgundian varietals, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, are planted in its cooler climates. And I don't know, why did he say varietal? Why didn't he say varieties? Come on, Robert, you know yours. Anyways, Santa Barbara County, near and dear to my heart, is my favorite region in America, maybe even the world. Rhone grapes, Bordeaux grapes, Burgundy grapes do well there. You also have Paso Robles. And there are bottlings, like in Santa Barbara County, you have San Quainon, Domaine de la Côte. You have also Saxum and Paso Robles, some other really cult bottlings. I feel like they still don't have the cachet with consumers that Napa still does. Napa is exorbitantly priced. Sonoma, the wines are starting to get more expensive. I've always really been more excited about the wines from the Central Coast, but I don't see producers getting as much shine, getting as much recognition as I think they should. I think another big problem with Santa Barbara, I feel like everything does well. You have great Calatel producers, you have some fantastic Bordeaux blends, some great Syrah when you go into like the Colson Canyon area, the Ballard Canyon area. Then of course you have Santa Maria Valley, Santa Rita Hills for excellent Pinot Noirs and Chardonnays. It's not ruling America. That one I think he missed on. Number 9, I think he's totally right. Southern Italy will ascend while few consumers will be able to afford Piemonte's profound Barolos and Barbarescos. Once backwater Italian viticulture areas such as Umbria, Campania, Basilicata, and the islands of Sicily and Sardinia will become household names by 2015. The winemaking revolution currently underway in Italy will continue, and its rewards will become increasingly apparent over the next decade. You're speaking my language here. These are regions that I love. I'm in Umbria often. I was in Campania 3 times last year. Sardinia and Sicily, I'm a big fan of. Umbria, for instance, just the only landlocked region in Italy that's not bordered by either another country or the sea, producing some excellent value for money wines, both white and red. I'm a big fan of Montefalco Rosso, which is a blend of Sagrantino and Sangiovese. They have a Trebbiano there called Trebbiano Spoletino, which makes outstanding wines. Campania, I've done tons of videos on the whites. I've just got an upcoming video about Tarassi, the Barolo of the South. Basilicata, Aglianico del Voltore, also made out of Aglianico. Those wines can be had at ridiculously low prices. Sicily is really hot right now, especially with Etna, the highest active volcano in Europe. They call it the Burgundy of the Mediterranean. Sardinia is an island to me. I haven't been in a couple years. I used to go once or twice a year. Island holds near and dear place to my heart. Lots of cooperatives, indigenous varieties, high value for money wines. I think it's ascending. I'm going to give him a little check on this. I don't think that it's household name, but it is ascending. And I'm too young in the business to remember decades and decades ago when a lot of Italy, actually the wines were still pretty rustic, especially the South. But he's right. I've even noticed in working in retail lately, a lot of people have been asking more about the wines from Puglia, a region I have a lot of experience with. I even told our buyer, hey, we need to start buying some more wines from Puglia because enough people are asking about them to make it significant. Number 10, unoaked wine will find a wider audience, giving the increasingly diverse style of foods we eat as well as the abundant array of tastes on our plates. There will be more and more wines that offer strikingly pure bouquet and flavors unmarked by wood aging. Crisp, lively whites and fruity, savory, and sensual reds will be in greater demand in 2015 than they are in 2004. That was the height of the Parker Big Oak era. He is 100% right on this. I think that's why all us geeks love Riesling so much for its pure crystalline flavors. For me, I know people in the industry go crazy over what's happening to whites in Italy right now because even making a white wine in Italy with just stainless steel, little lees contact, nothing complex, they still offer tremendously unique flavors. In the reds in the industry, there's a big move to wines that you make either in a glut natural style you can drink right away, or wines without wood, the wines that are aged in concrete or amphora. They just have pure fruit flavors, and that's the big trend right now. Thank goodness, and he was spot on right there. It's so funny. That's kind of like the antithesis of the Parker style, yet he predicted that back in 2004. Value will be valued. Despite my doom and gloom prediction about the prohibitive cost of the world's greatest wines, there will be more high-quality, low-priced wines than ever before. This trend will be led primarily by the European countries, although Australia will still play a huge role. I agree. There's more written here, but I agree. Value is valued. There are more higher quality, low-priced wines in the world probably than there has ever been. I still think you can drink really nice wines in between the $10 to $15 range. I think you can drink some of the greatest wines in the world, or let's soften that stance and get excellent wines in the $25 to the $50 range in the US. When you're in Europe, you can knock that down tremendously. I mean, in Portugal, I've drank wines that were, for me, 90-point type wines at 7-8 euros a bottle. It is led by the European countries. I think Portugal. Australia, I feel like is going in the opposite direction. They're trying to go more for premium quality, which is okay. I think Australia, the wines are outstanding. South America continues to lead the charge, although Chile's trying to dig themselves out of having the image of making cheap Cabernet Sauvignon, Argentina from making cheap Malbecs into making more higher quality wines. But value is valued. Working in retail, I've learned people want value. I'm not saying they need to spend as little as possible. I'm in an area where people spend quite a bit on wine. I mean, they're not buying all the first gross, but 30 to 50 bucks usually is no problem when they come in, but they want to know if it's good, if it aligns with their palate. So people just want the best value for money that they can get. Parker was 100% right on this. So that's number 11. He's 8.5. Remember, I gave the Spain will be a star as a half point. 8.5 out of 11. And number 12, I think he's right too. So 9.5 out of 12. So you're coming close to 80%. That's a hell of a soothsayer. I would say if somebody is predicting the future and gets about 80% of predictions right, especially 20 years later, man, you know what they're doing. Number 12, diversity will be the word. By 2015, the world of wine will have grown even more diverse. We will see quality wines from unexpected places like Bulgaria, Romania, places I've been, Russia, yes, Mexico, yes, China, which I'm going to in June. Some great wines there. Japan, yes, Lebanon, Turkey, and perhaps even India, where there is wine being made. Michelle Roland is actually a consultant at Grover over there. I believe that even with all these new producers, the saturation point will not be reached, since even greater number of the world's population will demand wine as their alcoholic drink of choice. Not so right on that, as the demand for wine has started to go down, although that's typically at the bottom scale. People just want to drink less than drink higher quality. To this day, I still get more excited about lesser trodden corners of the wine world with all these unique grape varieties, unique stories to be told. And it's really exciting. Yes, I lived in Mexico for 3 months in Baja to taste the wines. Outstanding. I've been tasting some excellent wines coming out of China, and I'm excited to finally go to Ningxia this June. Lebanon, we know are great wines. I've tasted some great Pinot Noir from Japan. Bulgaria is a country I'm very high on. I've been there several times. I think some of the wines can be outstanding. Romania is making some good wines, although they tend to favor a lot of oak and pretty big, although they've been improving a lot. I've been keeping up with the tasting. So, Mr. Parker, almost 80% on your predictions over 20 years ago. That's a pretty darn good score. What do you think about some of these topics I brought up? What do you think about Robert Parker in general? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below.